This is a short story that feels almost like a Shirley Jackson short story, but without that tinge of darkness. Unfortunately, I think without that tinge of darkness, it feels almost more like pop fiction. However, it does include a very deep dive into the modern human psyche, something that is perhaps far more ancient than our current standards would accept. Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we're here for another short story discussion, which will appear, of course, in the short story discussion playlist. This is a video about The Standard of Living by Dorothy Parker, and it will include three separate sections. Number one being a So What Happened recap of the short story. Number two being a literary criticism section, where we talk about the sort of literary goings on. And number three being the writer's corner, that I think actually has some more. So I think that if you were to read this short story as a writer, it would be easy to dismiss, but I think that that would be, I think you would be mistaken in doing so. So, what happened in The Standard of Living by Dorothy Parker? It's Saturday, and Annabelle and Midge are leaving the tea room having just gorged on, well, just about everything. That is what they are wont to do, and it does not affect them. They do not gain weight from it. They are stenographers together and best friends. They each live at home with family and spend time with each other, often with two men as well. Any men, really, it doesn't matter to them. They are young and attractive, and they play it up, even at work. Now, they're headed to Fifth Avenue to play their favorite game. That game, well, let's read from the short story itself, if I can get my ducks in a row here. You must suppose that somebody dies and leaves you $1,000,000 cool. But there is a condition to the bequest. It is stated in the will that you must spend every nickel of the money on yourself. That is their favorite game. They go and they look at the expensive things and they play the game that someone has left them $1,000,000 and now they have to spend it. So they look around at stuff and they say they'd buy it. That is how they spend their time. So Midge says she'd buy that strip of pearls, that strand of pearls in the window, and they banter about how much they think that strand of pearls costs. And Annabelle dares Midge to go in. Yeah, Annabelle dares Midge to go in and figure it out. Maybe $1,000, they figure. Turns out it's $250,000. The nerve, right? And they agree. They agree that it would take some nerve to charge that amount of money for some pearls. Then they walk in silence until. Listen, Annabelle, she said. Look, suppose there was this terribly rich person, see? You don't know this person, but this person has seen you somewhere and wants to do something for you. Well, it's a terribly old person, see? It's the same game, right? And so this person dies, just like going to sleep, and leaves you $10,000,000. Now, what would be the first thing you'd do? After deciding that the pearls cost entirely too much, they up the ante in their own little game that they play. Instead of $1,000,000, that's chump change, right? Let's go for the real money. Someone leaves you $10,000,000. Okay, so the first thing to talk about with this is this. I think that, like I said, this feels almost pop fiction-ish, right? Which the sort of taboo of pop fiction among literati is that you can take it or leave it. It's just entertainment, right? There's no depth to it. There's no real heft to the literature. There's no life lessons in it. There's no allusions to other literature. But this did stick in the craw of many people, apparently. This short story was published in 1941, and this is a Richard Pryor movie called Brewster's Millions. Let me get my... Oh, no. Right here. Brewster's Millions. I know you can see it, but I have this pen that does this, so I have to use it now. Brewster's Millions, if you were to take the Wikipedia summary of the movie, Brewster's Millions is a 1985 American comedy film where, director by Walter Hill, the film stars Richard Pryor, John Candy, Lynette McKee, Stephen Collins, and Hume Cronin. The screenplay by Herschel Weingrod and Timothy Harris was based on the 1902 novel by the same name by George Barr McCutcheon. In the seventh film based on the story and focusing on a minor league pitcher who accepts a challenge to spend $30 million in 30 days in order to inherit $300 million from his uncle. So this game that they play feels very throwaway. It feels kind of like an inside joke between two friends. But apparently this is not just that. This is an older thing. This is a movie in 1985, but as we are told here, it's based on a novel from 1902. So this game that these two play is more common. I've never played this game with any of my friends. Is this something that goes back beyond the 1902 novel? Is this something that lives through to today? Very interesting that perhaps that this is in the back of our minds. But that is not where the interesting things from this short story end. So I wanted to read this little bit, this dialogue exchange, because this truly caught me off guard. This is why I know the short story was published in 1941. I had to go check because of this little exchange of dialogue here. Where are we at? What do you suppose... This is as they're checking out the pearls in the window, not in the shop yet. What do you suppose they cost? Annabelle said. Gee, I don't know, Midge said. Plenty, I guess. Like $1,000, Annabelle said. Oh, I guess like more, Midge said, on account of the emerald. Well, like $10,000, Annabelle said. Gee, I wouldn't even know, Midge said. The devil nudged Annabelle in the ribs. Dare you to go in and price them, she said. Like fun. Dare you, Annabelle said. The use of both dares and, like, I don't know, I had no idea that those things were problems with people 80 years ago. Think about that. When I was young, I was born in 1985, everyone said the whole like thing was something that kids did. I thought that they meant kids in the 80s, and then it became a bigger problem as time went on. No, apparently this is something that young people have done for a very long time. The next thing we're talking about here is this. On the same page of my short story as the previous quote that I gave you, they tendered thanks icily to the doorman by... I'm having problems and troubles speaking. Problems and troubles. They tendered thanks icily to the doorman for ushering them into the shop. It was cool and quiet, a broad, gracious room with paneled walls and soft carpet, but the girls wore expressions of bitter disdain, as if they were in a sty. They thank the doorman icily, and then they have this stink face as they walk through. They are acting the part of the wealthy. It is an interesting thing that, again, something that you might think is contemporary, but rich people have had that stigma about them seemingly for a very long time, as if they are better than everyone else, and they make that stink face on their own. The last thing to talk about, I think, from this short story from a literary criticism standpoint, is this. Lifestyle creep. So, the standard of living, that is the title of this short story. And the short story starts with these characters indulging. Sure. Indulging, sure that they are living it up. They are eating these small cakes, they are drinking the fancy drinks, and they're absolutely positive that is the pinnacle of life. And then they play their game. So they play their game where they are supposedly going to inherit some wild amount of money, $1 million. Can you even imagine? And they go out and they find this strand of pearls that would be a quarter of that entire inheritance. And what do? They realize, well, that's chump change. $1 million is chump change. So not only is their lifestyle creep as they got these jobs, right, where they can pay for things, so they go out and they have these fancy breakfasts together on Saturdays. There's also fantasy creep. The moment they see these pearls that they figure might cost $1,000, maybe $10,000, and then they understand that those pearls cost $250,000. That moment, their fantasy life creeps up too. Now, the neatest trick in this short story is this: that entire dynamic. The moment we meet these young women, they are indulging, and we are meant to judge them, and I imagine most of us probably do, at least a little bit, going out and indulging in these sweet treats, indulging in these fancy drinks like Starbucks, right? But Starbucks of the 1940s. That is what they're doing with their money that they earn at a job and they don't have to spend on rent because they're living with family. They have to spend some money on rent, but not the same thing as buying a house, not the same thing as renting your own apartment, right? So instead of saving the rest of their money, they go out and they buy these fancy treats, and we judge them for that. And then they go and they play their game. And by the end of the short story, when we too realize that that strand of pearls is $250,000, we have to wonder who it is that can indulge in such a treat. At the beginning, we judge them the way they indulge and are wasteful. But by the end of the short story, even we have to come to terms with the fact that there are, in fact, people who have way more money than buying some cakes and tea on a Saturday morning. Enough money to blow $250,000 in 1941 money on a strand of pearls, something that looks pretty but has absolutely no function, something that looks pretty but has absolutely no nutritional value, right? So it is not only the lifestyle and the fantasy world of these young women that have the creep upwards, right? But also the fact that if we judge them, our standard for judging people is way off kilter for how people spend their money. Now, as far as the writer's corner is concerned here, there is, I think, a difference between characters being interesting and characters being entertaining. When you look at something like, and I'll use this as an example because I think a lot of people are familiar with it, you look at something like Friends, the sitcom, Friends. Those are entertaining characters on some level. But are they interesting? Do you ever wonder more deeply about Chandler Bing or Joey Tribbiani? Do you wonder what it is that makes them tick? Or are you just happy enough to watch what it is that they do on screen? I think that these characters in this story are more entertaining than interesting. I think that the basis for heftier literature, and I'm not making the argument that this is pop fiction or that it's disposable. I think that it could borderline on it. I think that you have to do a little bit of work to get to the interesting stuff. But I do think that there is a difference between entertaining and interesting characters. I think these characters are entertaining, but I do think we'll get to this in point two that the author is talented enough to plant something in there that very nearly makes them interesting. I think that the interesting characters are the ones that you say, Tyler Durden in Fight Club, interesting character, both the novel and the movie. You want to know what it is that makes him tick. You want to know how it is that he got the way he is. With these young women, the explanation that we get is solid enough. They are young, they live with family, they have a job that allows them disposable income, so they play this game. So they go out and have tea on a Saturday morning. We can understand that. It's not enough to make them interesting. They are entertaining enough because they are in their own relationship here, right? We are given by the author this insight into their world. But there's nothing really there, I don't think, to keep us there with them. There is no part of this short story that makes me wish it were a novel. So I think that is part of the way that they are more entertaining than interesting. I think you should always aim for the interesting, because I think that's where the real work is done in writing. Now, I said that there was a neat trick by the author to make it seem almost interesting, and that is this. At the end of this short story, they are walking off and they have changed their game. You almost have to wonder what the future holds for them. You almost have to wonder if they start to look at their job and decide, well, my job's not enough. If there's people that can blow $250,000 on a strand of pearls that in my wildest dreams I thought cost $10,000, there must be more to the world than this. There must be more outside of my job as a stenographer than this. And that makes us wonder about the future. That's a good enough trick to make a short story stick with someone. I still don't think it ventures over into being interesting as opposed to entertaining, but it is a neat ploy from an author that may have recognized she did not get the depth to this piece that she was hoping. But it is also something that might not make your writing invaluable, but it does make it valuable. So you can leave this short story and you can take this game with you, right? If you inherited $10 million from someone you didn't know, so there's no emotional baggage behind it, but you have to spend it all on yourself, you can take that with you. And the ending of this short story makes it very tempting to take that with you, because we're imagining the way that game creeps upwards. You have to wonder if this game between them continues to grow. Does it next? They've broken the threshold of that fancy jewelry store. Do they go back? Do they keep up this charade of, no, we're the rich, we're very important, we're very posh. Let us in so we can look at these expensive jewelries. Do they keep that up? Do they take that with them? Do they, at some point, realize, yeah, we thought we were fancy eating these cakes and drinking tea. I don't even have the heart to continue playing that game, realizing how little I have compared to other people. So I think that there is some of that too. That is all I have for this short story discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.